That was super fascinating. I think about the big guys, and they're the ones that have to work really hard and they never get rich. We're the guys that don't put in any effort and get rich overnight.
Speak
right?
for yourself. I'm poor and work harder than anybody. So,
no.
Oh, there's no momentum in my joke anymore, but I'm probably still one of the lowest paid people in this room, so I don't know about that.
So as you can see from the title, we're trying to shift the terminology for off-grid mining to mining in the bush, and that is thanks to Rod and Eco and Scott from their recent trip. Before we get started, I thought that we'd just take a minute, give a bit of our CV on doing mining the hard way. Unfortunately, the way that does not pay as much as the big guys, but it certainly takes more creativity and a lot more effort to do. So, Marshall, you want to give us a bit of your background in doing some bush mining?
yeah, sure. So, I've been traditionally mining since 2010, but I was introduced by a mutual friend of ours to gridless, and originally a friend of mine wanted to mine, and I said, dude, you don't want this life at all. And he said, no, I don't believe you. And so he came, saw one of my setups, and then realized I absolutely don't want to do this. And then he went to the Oslo Freedom Forum, and that's where he met Eric and Philip. And he calls me, he's like, dude, there's this African guy, get on a phone right now. And I was like, okay. And I was presented with a very white guy. And I said, dude, are you sure you're not getting scammed here? Like, you're in Norway. This guy says he's mining in the middle of Africa. Like that, I've heard this pitch like 40 times, dude. Like, this isn't right. He said, no, just trust me. So we had maybe like an hour phone call or so. And then I said, okay, they need to come meet me. I need to feel them out, see if, what's going on here. And so it was maybe a month or two after that. They came down to Houston, and we kind of went through some things. I kind of ran on my normal traps, and I was like, oh, okay, this is maybe interesting. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to go to Kenya and see what it's about, fully thinking this is a scam. It's going to be so easy to find that this is a scam. And so we go there. They take me to one of their sites, one of the gridless sites, and I kind of break off from the group, and I'm like, I need to talk to somebody the pitch was we can lower people's power bills with Bitcoin mining. Like, Bitcoin fixes this. I'm like, dude, I've seen this movie like a million times. It's literally Twitter everywhere. And so I go up in the hills. I meet this guy named John, and I say, John, tell me how your power bills have been like lowered, how that's impacted your life. And he was like, oh, like, I don't really care about the power bill being lowered. I was like, I knew it. This is bullshit. I knew it. And then he went on to tell me, well, it's not because of that. It's because my power is cheaper, so I can afford to run a reciprocating engine to cut better hay for my cows. And what used to take me 10 hours takes me 10 minutes. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing with your time now? He's like, well, my cows are fatter, so I'm making 3 times more money. And I have like a whole day. And I'm like, well, what are you doing with your time? He's like, I'm learning how to use the internet. I'm learning new languages. I learned how to use a computer. And that's when the moment ticked. I've built gigawatts across the world, but that's not been super community impacting. But this was the first time I'd truly seen how Bitcoin could, on the mining landscape, directly impact a community for the better in such a one-to-one relation. It's not filtered through anything. It's just, boom, there, right in your face. And that's the moment I decided to invest in gridless. And then maybe about 6 months later, I was like, guys, why are we growing so slow? We can help more people. And they were like, dude, we have like investors and like we're professionals. This is not like cowboy mining like you're used to. And due to my impatience, I started mining in a much more, shall we say, hostile environment in Africa. And so outside of the gridless stuff, I now have a few mines in other parts of Africa, and those have their own challenges and gifts themselves. So yeah, it's been a wild, fun ride, and thanks to no short part to these fine gentlemen at Gridless.
Cool. I guess for me, off-grid or in the bush, I consider it the cool way of Bitcoin mining. A little less monotonous than these big mega mines you guys deal with, but Definitely not without its challenges. I guess my sort of background into it was as an oil field engineer. We had all these engines in Canada running well sites, and these engines weren't fully utilized. They're putting out so much power to run the well, and using the surplus gas from the production of oil, and guys were putting load banks, just like, if you don't know what a load bank is, just a bank of resistors to load up the engine just to waste the energy. Like that was the projects I was involved in when I was working at a company called Husky Oil in Canada. And it was just, everyone would look at it and just shake their head. Like, guys are literally setting up new engines just to run a load bank, just to burn gas. And you're paying all this operating and maintenance cost to maintain that engine, and all this capital costs. And this is the biggest waste of money and resources. And this is not, it's a way to combust the gas and not release it to the atmosphere, but it's like a massive waste of capital. And it's just a net negative on the environment. And that's sort of what got me into it, because I was learning about Bitcoin at that time in 2016 and started our company. And that's sort of what we focus on now is upstream oil and gas. But over the years, we've been involved in lots of random, distributed, in the bush mining projects, all kinds of stuff, because we sort of always specialize in these really small modular enclosures for Bitcoin mining. So it's been an interesting ride. A few things to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've for those of you who don't know, Steve's a phenomenal engineer and is constantly thinking about, like, how could we do this better in places that a lot of people wouldn't be willing to go set up Bitcoin mining. How do we make it reliable? How do we get it running? So it's super impressive stuff that he's working on.
And this guy's super humble. There's a lot of people that you guys probably know that have started businesses because they went to see this psychopath in northern Canada. So he won't tell you that, but there are a lot of businesses, and maybe the whole industry was started for off-grid mining by this guy right here.
That's I think that's a little over the top, but I appreciate the good words. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride. I mean, even we got these even micro products like these black boxes we do, and it's like this niche thing we did for like home mining. Some people use it for heat reuse. It was mainly for sound attenuation. And this product just we keep pumping them out, like not at a crazy pace, but like guys, like there's a guy in California now using them for residential solar, like these random things that I never envisioned that the product might get used for. And they're now applying them to like residential solar to deal with just some regulatory changes on how, residents are getting paid for their solar power. So just all these like, things I certainly never envisioned with like our business plan just sort of pop up because of the creativity in the community. And these weird little niche things that like companies like us, try to offer end up being used in ways we never imagined they would. So
one of the things I wanted us to try and achieve, because I know obviously we have a lot of home miners, and those guys are tackling a different problem set than we are. I think we're kind of the mid-tier miners. But as Mike just talked about, I actually think we're the future of mining, and I want to get to that towards the end. But what I wanted us to really be able to articulate is some of the unique challenges that come with putting mining equipment a really long way from normal infrastructure. Steve, I'll let you start. But I mean, whether it's connectivity challenges or resourcing challenges, when you have to travel a really long distance to a site and you can't just go touch it every day, how do you think about mining differently than somebody that's got a big warehouse and a bunch of resources and they're running around and fixing things when they break? I think it's really important for us to share some of those unique challenges that we have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, the distributed mining, especially the stuff we focus on, say, in the oil field, like integrated natural gas engines. I mean, you're not only dealing with a Bitcoin mining load, and you want to keep that reliable and the equipment protected from the elements, but you're also dealing with rotating equipment. You have reciprocating engines. In some cases, guys have turbines. So you're basically like a microgrid. Every one of our like hash generator products, which has an integrated gen set, is basically a microgrid in and of itself. You're feeding it fuel gas and it's generating electricity. There's a huge need for automation around it. So remote access, automation. Pretty much all of our oil field projects, most of them, at best you might get someone on site once a day. And they're usually checking the well, doing their logs, and you got to build systems that are very reliable, not just when the weather is good, in all weather conditions. I mean, the storms pass through. They have to have the ability, if they need to remotely shut it down. There's cases where like you got big blizzards come through, the roads get no access, right? And they have to be able to remote shut down their wells, like so they don't overflow their tanks in some cases, depending on what the kind of production that's going on. And they got to be able to deal with these systems. So a lot of the challenges, like in one sense, like building a container is really simple. It's really, really easy. It's been done for a long time. Even my first project when I was doing research, and I did most of it myself and hired some tradesmen to do the hard stuff. Overall, it wasn't that challenging, like figuring out how to build a container, but then to make it reliable and automated, have great filtration, be able to survive a blizzard, not suck in snow, survive a heat wave, all these things with no one having quick access to it. And certainly, especially in the oil field, we can't build a product that's going to be a huge overhead for the operators on site. It has to be a light touch. It's pretty challenging, and there's a lot of expenses that go into it. And I mean, you can sort of do it really cheaply, and we've done a lot of really cheap versions. Sometimes we've gone too cheap and like screwed up on cheap materials or less automation, and then we've gone overkill, like too much, and then it's too expensive. There's like a mix and a balance that you got to find. That's to me is the biggest challenge with my business, is like building really reliable, distributed computing assets that can run through anything. And I still don't think I perfected our product after I'm now 8 years in business, and we're still every day like talking about different improvements we want to make.
So I'm going to invent a new term, telemining. So getting somebody in the field that has no knowledge of mining to actually reach in and do something useful just by calling them on the telephone.
And then running a generator is a skill set in and of itself. It's very challenging. And there's not a lot of people in the Bitcoin world with the competencies to do that. Running a Bitcoin mine has a lot of challenges, and a lot of people in the oil field didn't have the training and knowledge to do that. So like even just the support you have to have, like the ability to support the customers, it's quite a lot of work.
Yeah, but at least you have roads. You have roads in your site, so
we got the luxury of roads. So I can't complain.
I was going to go like Marshall telemining. Talk to a bit about Marshall about the human resource challenge. I mean, you've got some. I know they're really good guys on the ground, but
sure.
You also have to give a lot of your own deep wealth of knowledge and insight to keep that stuff running.
Yeah, so we have some of the same problems, remote locations, but there in some of the mines that I have in Nigeria, there literally are no roads. You ever tried to transport a 3 megawatt transformer through the mud for 2 months straight? That's the reality at one of the sites we have. You blow a fuse on a high voltage somewhere, it's going to take you a month to get another one, so you got to triple order everything. But beyond that, the people side of it, where we go, it's let's just say not very friendly to almost anyone. And so we partner with local communities. And so, most of our mines, we have a community fund where, the local tribal council can, they dictate where it goes. So if somebody in the community needs to go to the doctor or go to school or whatever, the Bitcoin versus the Naira dominates. It's not a problem. And so, keeping the community aligned with you. Another example, you can upgrade their grid that helps you and them. For example, one of the sites, summer of last year, they needed a new transmission line. So we ran 40 kilometers of new transmission line that made us have better uptime, that gave them better power reliability. And at the end of the day, it wasn't that much cost compared to the upside benefit. And so now you've gained the trust of the community, and now it is a kind of a self-fulfilling mechanism where they're incentivized to keep you up because you keep their intermittent generation up. And so instead of having resistive load banks, we are the resistive load bank for their generation service, and now they're incentivized to help us. So, we locally hire for security, we locally hire networking people. There's a lot of smart people where we go, and they just need a little bit of teaching. And, for me personally, the culture of working with different countries in Africa has been probably my biggest learning curve, thanks in no small part to you guys. Anytime I have something that just doesn't make sense to my American brain, I call these guys. I'm like, dude, why would somebody do this? It doesn't make any sense. And they're like, welcome to Africa. So, for me, on the personnel side, you got to find people you can trust and make sure that they're incentivized along with you so that everybody can kind of grow and win together.
Well, and you actually touched on the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is the impact on the community. And I think maybe, Steve, in your case, is the impact on the oil field operation. In the end, Bitcoin mining is a tool, and we're using that tool to go in and solve problems in places where, there's a particular issue, whether it's the reliability of the power grid or, it's energy just being used to heat the air instead of doing something productive with it. What do you see as the impact on, the organizations that you work with, and how bringing mining into those organizations, delivers more than just economic value?
Well, I guess over the years I've learned, the business model I had when I started has shifted over the years. I used to do deals where, we would finance the whole project, bring it in, and get free gas or have some kind of deal like that. I learned a lot over the years about incentives and having a proper risk share. And today, we don't do deals like that anymore. We only do deals where our end user, if it's the oil company we're working with direct, they're taking some risk. We've had big wins with oil companies. We've had big flops with oil companies, and it's usually, historically, it might have been some bugs in the equipment we built them, but usually it was based on risk sharing. And nowadays, I will not do a deal with an oil company unless they're taking some risk, usually on the generator. They have to be involved in either owning it or taking some ownership of upkeep in it, versus say a deal where we're just bringing it in and buying gas for pennies or something like that. Because when there's a bad incentive, it eventually collapses and someone's unhappy. So I think the best projects we've had are when we've gotten the oil companies on board with taking some risk, and that's where they see the real benefits of the projects overall. So I'd say the striking that balance between sharing risk appropriately and sharing the reward appropriately it's always been the main challenge.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome point, and it's a question we get a lot. Is how do you keep your miners safe? And the truth is, lions. We always have a pack of lions around the container. But so we're at this remote site in Northwest Zambia, and the people in the community, right? The people that are using the electricity that's being provided by this generation site, they know that the employees that come to their house that fix the transmission lines are getting paid by this swarm of angry bees that's sitting at the generation site, and they recognize that. So it is not in there. We've aligned the incentives, and I think that's a key part of mining in the bush, is figuring out how to make sure you've got properly aligned incentives, that you're not just in there extracting value and paying them pennies for their gas, or paying them pennies for their electricity, but that there's a real engagement to make sure that everybody benefits from the mining. So it is mining in the bush, and I know we all have some crazy stories of stuff that we've had to deal with or problems we've had to solve. So, Marshall, you want to give us a super crazy story? What's the craziest shit you've had to deal with?
I want you to start with your first flying termite attack.
Yeah. And every time I come to this event, I have this conversation and have to whip out the photos. So one of the things that happens in Africa is when the first rains come, we get these flying ants, flying termites. And so we had taken down the filtration and the screens on our container. We didn't think too much about it. It's not a very dusty environment. And so the operator left the lights on overnight, and the rains came. flying ants flew into to find the light and got sucked into the fans. So we're micro BT only, what's minor. And we came in the next morning, the fan blades were shattered. Insides are filled with bug guts. And all 3 hash lights are still on. It was still hashing.
Shout out Micro BT.
Shout out Micro BT.
Sounds about correct with micro BT.
So this is actually another funny thing. And when I first met Steve and listened to him talk, like the bush miners, we love micro BT. Like we are not we're not Bitmain fans. We need rough and reliable machines, and I think micro BT's done that.
I don't know how, there's a few things that happened over the years, but I think shilling micro BT, I mean, over the years of developing product and trying things and trying to simplify things and make things like ultra cheap, we've run into problems. I mean, and I've seen our buildings fill with snow before. I've dealt with that before, and
similar to flying ants, right?
Yeah. Micro BT machines, you just thaw them out and they're fine. Like you might lose a power supply, but I sort of became a micro BT maximalist after I almost, I had a few bad days dealing with that one year. But I don't know about crazy stories. I know once I got a call from the cops. I've always been worried. The one thing with this question always comes up with the oil field companies and any one of our customers is like, how do you deal with theft, right? The risk of theft. You got this asset in a remote place and it's not monitored, and if someone breaks in, the cops aren't coming. Like, even the cops are called, they're not coming anytime soon. So we had we actually have never, as far as I know, like any of our direct assets had major theft incident, but I did get a call from the cops one year. There was the kind of theft we normally see in oil field is like copper theft, battery theft, just opportunistic guys running to site grabbing a battery out of the engine. And there was some people running around doing that, and they got an operator called them in, and the cops started chasing them. And they found him a few hours later hiding in our hash generator. It was nice and warm in there. It was nice and warm inside. It was negative 30 degrees in January, degree C in January. I don't know what that means in Fahrenheit.
Cold.
America units, but in degrees C it was quite cold. And yes, they were warmed up inside, and they caught them in our hash generator.
That's awesome.
On the micro BT side, I will say that the people of Auradine have started shipping units to Africa.
Most recently, thanks to Marshall, one is on the way to us.
Yeah. So Audine's got a few customers in Africa now. So more robust miners that's the name of the game for sure. As far as crazy stories, everything breaks all the time in the bush. Everything breaks, and I have no idea why you drive a Range Rover. That thing's a piece of crap. But I would say most recently we had 2 deployments going on at the same time on opposite ends of the borders of Nigeria. And we had a crane going to one to offload a transformer, and then he was going to drive to the other side and offload a container at the other side. So everything was staged to work perfectly. We had all the roads and logistics and everything set up. And he takes the transformer up, and then I wake up in the morning and I get a text, boss, bad news. And it's just a picture of the crane on its side, a transformer on its side. And I said, what happened? All they said was, it rained. Okay. So now we've got this site, and they're going to have to get another truck. But not only is this site going to be delayed, but the other site, how are you going to offload a container that weighs 5 tons that's got a bunch of power equipment in it? This is how scrappy people in the bush are. They unloaded a 10,000-pound container by hand. They just called everybody and their brother, and they're like, yo, let's unload this thing. We got money to make. We got power. I need to use my cell phone tonight, and it's not going to happen if this container's here. So I kid you not, there were 40 Nigerians who hand unloaded a container full of ASICs in the bush, and they got it turned on. And I was just like, dude, this is like that. The bush cuts both ways. The people are the strongest, most scrappy people, innovative that you've ever seen. But also, rain can just take everything out. So,
So as I started this, it is very clear that this is just a get-rich-quick scheme, and that none of us put in any effort to actually get our mining up and running. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to ask that somebody ask the final question that I didn't get to. We have 10 minutes of questions? Yeah, okay. Just ask one of these guys a bit about the future of where we're going with bush mining. So let's open it up to questions.